Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. We are on a 2-hour chart of the gold silver relative performance chart. So you can see the duration of this chart is roughly back to February to the current date. You can see that the May 1st silver crash was accompanied by a gold crash. Not as extreme, but fairly steep in movement. Now, we are at an inflection point as of today. Gold has now closed. We'll go tied in so you can see. And that's not close enough, so we'll back out a bit. Gold has closed today at a new high for closing high. So we'll back out to the 2-hour, and you can see if you look on these black spikes, that's gold, and you can see where we're at right now. We've closed at a higher price. We're not into new high, all-time highs. New all-time highs would be this line right here, and we're still just a little bit below them for all-time high prices, but gold has closed above that because these were spike drop. We're actually closed at the highest close we've ever closed at for gold. So this news is accompanied by a lot of other pieces of news. There's just too many things to cover. I can't cover them all, but I want to go over the highlights. So the first thing I want to point out is this is the gold silver overlay, and if we go historically, we can pull out to the daily, and we really want to pull out to the weekly to get the overview of how this thing works. And the way that silver trades normally with gold is that when gold makes its move, silver catches up. So I've drawn 3 lines here that indicate gold breakouts and the subsequent silver move. So you can see this line actually corresponds to the beginning of the silver breakout, but there's a new gold breakout, and you can see that silver moves dramatically higher, eventually catching the price of gold. And we're at another one of these inflection points. There are 3 of them here. So my expectation is that once gold moves above these old highs, we've drawn a number of lines. You can see that silver actually matched it there, but is significantly lower. So for silver to catch up and be the equivalent of gold based on recent moves, you can go over to this left-hand side and see that silver needs to be about $49 to be the equivalent of gold. Now, I fully expect that when, let's go all the way to the monthly, when this move actually catches up, as it has done here and here and here, that it will actually surpass the price of gold. So we will go through 50 and go much higher, and I think eventually silver is going to leave gold in the dust as far as percentage moves, because the fundamentals of the silver market are so extraordinary when you compare them to the fundamentals of the gold market. There's no comparison whatsoever. But so let's just go to a pure gold chart and take a look at what happened today. It's very exciting because when you combine it with the news that we're having, and one big piece of news was that the Fed, I don't know if I can find it right here on Yahoo, but the Fed was divided over stimulus. So here's a hint at QE3. If you remember, QE2 was accompanied by this move in silver. This move, starting here, began with the announcement of QE2. So we had a silver run from about $18 to nearly 50. So a 250% move occurred with the announcement of QE2. So we're starting to get hints of QE3, and gold has already responded. I expect that silver will have a knock-on effect and ultimately respond. Now, some other really big news that happened today is kind of a stealth move that wasn't covered, and that's the movement in the Japanese yen. So I'm going to take you to a tighter chart here so you can see, and we'll pull up some volume so you can see the volume. But there was a move today in the yen, the dollar yen, and this price here, 79, that means 79 yen to the dollar. As this price goes down, you can see we touched 78.5. That's 78.5 yen to the dollar. So as this price decreases, that means the dollar is losing value against the yen. Now, if you remember, I put out a video when the Fukushima disaster hit, and that was this spike. That spike was accompanied by central bank intervention to support, as they said, we need to come and support Japan in their time. No, this was support of the dollar. Because as this price declines, that means the dollar is getting weaker against the yen. So this central bank intervention was actually an attempt by the central banks of the world to prop up the yen carry trade, which is now collapsing. So if we go into a tighter view, we can see the dramatic move that's occurring in the yen. 78.5. That's a huge move. If we go way out and look at the weekly chart, you can see this low achieved in 1995 has now been surpassed. The Fukushima spike was a spike below that, and we had a huge rally on central bank intervention, and we've now continued the descending line. So as Jimmy Rogers said, and he was quoted in Market Wizards, that the way you trade a market, if there's central bank intervention, is you wait for the rally and you go the other way. Because governments are always wrong. When governments fight markets, they always lose, because markets are a more powerful force than governments. So you wanted to wait for this rally and sell here. And now you can see, unreported in the news, we are going into new lows. Now this may be another central bank intervention here. You can see we hit 78.5, a huge move. We're back to 79.5. We didn't penetrate the lows that were made at Fukushima, but we challenged those lows, and it's my opinion that ultimately those lows, this low at 76.5, is not going to hold, and we're going to penetrate this to the downside. So that's another huge news item that is not even being reported because of all of the European news and the debt limit news and all the other news. So let's jump over to an article here about what's going on with the debt. Now, Obama made an unprecedented move today by threatening the payment of Social Security checks. Basically what he said was, if they don't reach a deal by August 2nd, they're not going to pay the checks on August 3rd. Now, it's just personally my opinion that that was an enormous tactical failure on his part. And I think seniors are old, and seniors are a lot of things, but seniors aren't dumb. And there's a lot of things that Obama could have threatened that he didn't threaten. I would have threatened, you know what? If you don't reach a deal, we're going to close half our bases overseas. If you don't reach a deal, we're going to suspend Congress's pension. If you don't reach a deal, we're going to suspend all federal pay of all federal employees, etc., etc. But he didn't do that. He threatened the checks of Social Security. That's huge. That's so big, I can't even describe it. It's a move that I think is ultimately will be a fatal move for Obama. He will have turned, in my opinion, he will have turned all seniors against him, because it's going to be obvious to them that he had a choice of taking on any other fat cats or any other people, but he decided to take on the seniors. And I think the senior vote is going to swing against him in a violent way. I think that is Herbert Hoover II, and he's gone. I think he actually sealed his fate today. So that's another huge news item, and it's just really incredible, all these things coming at the same time. Now, other news is the euro and what's happening with it. If you remember, I mentioned that Lindsey Williams had commented that if we see a tremendous euro down move, a collapse of the euro, and that's going to take a move below here, then that's end game scenario. You'll have 3 weeks to pull all dollar accounts, and then the dollar will collapse and all currencies will collapse, and we'll go into a worldwide depression at that point. I don't know if Lindsey is right. The jury remains out. That remains to be seen. But he may be right, because he's been spot on in the past. Now, I just wanted to issue a warning, and I think that the Obama news is a clear vindication of the warning I've been making. And that's about people who receive government aid. I'm not making a judgment about whether the aid is justified. I think that what Obama did today is despicable, because these people paid money in, and they're threatening to not let them get their money back out. So I think that's despicable. And I'm not making a moral judgment against people who collect Social Security. I'm not making a moral judgment against people who collect welfare, or people who are in Section 8 housing, or food stamps, or unemployment, or government pensions, or government payrolls, or anything else. I'm simply saying this. If you are a person living in our society who is collecting money from the government, you need to make other plans, and you need to make them fast, because these promises are going to fail. I know you may have paid in a lot. I know that you may have been cheated. It doesn't matter at this point. The politicians have made 10 times the promises they can keep, and they are unable to keep the promises they've made. So it doesn't matter. There's no moral judgment about what you're collecting, or why you're collecting it, or how much you paid in. They're going to cut it. They're going to either cut it to nothing, or they're going to inflate it to nothing, because there aren't enough people paying into the system to pay for the people collecting from the system. It is an inevitable mathematical certainty that there is going to be a bankruptcy and a collapse. So you need to prepare your house now, because there's a very good chance that this fall is going to be the moment of truth. And I expect that we're going to see very soon here that gold is going to explode into new highs, probably to 2000 very rapidly. And the normal period of strength for gold is late summer through early fall, all the way through winter. And it looks like gold is doing an early run, and silver is going to follow. I think I can project that we will take out this old high by next year, and I fully expect an approach to triple digits or $100 in silver. But you need to get your house in order now. You need to drop all dependencies on government income, regardless, whatever they are. You need to stock up silver. You're going to have to stock up cash, some cash, to make it through bank runs. You want to prepare your gardens, start stocking food, especially organic food and essentials, potentially firearms and ways to protect yourself, because what is coming is going to be a level of depression that hasn't been seen in the Western world since the Dark Ages. And you're going to see a complete collapse of all government promises, all government guarantees, and gold is sounding the alarm today. It's, in my opinion, it's going to break out to the upside, and it's not even going to look back. And when that does, silver's going to follow, and food prices, fuel prices, everything else are just going to go through the roof as all of the fiat currencies of all the governments of the world collapse at the same time. And you need to start making preparations now. You need to protect yourself from what's coming, because it's inevitable. No one can stop it. And we'll talk to you next time.